Hello everybody, this is Iced Blood. Welcome back to Final Fantasy XIV. We are in the third dungeon of the main scenario for A Realm Reborn, which is not very far. And those who have been keeping tabs on the game's progress will know, of course, that there is about a week left before, I think, early access for Heavensward will start. So, I got some catching up to do. But I want to still try and get as far as I can, in this intervening week. I've had some, things distracting me from making videos, lately, but there's a thing about this expansion that makes it different, than I'm used to dealing with, to wit, in order to access the new stuff that the expansion will add, the new areas and everything like that. So the new quest lines, the new stories, the new dungeons, and all that kind of stuff. We have to get ourselves through the main scenario of A Realm Reborn. So I have to. I can't just skip things. I can't decide that I want to skip certain parts of the story. It's actually blocked. And until I finish up this first storyline, yeah, I'm going to be locked out, basically. So we have to fix that. So we're here in Copperbell Mines. Now, this one, I mentioned in the bridge video, basically, last time, that this one is interesting to me just because it's more problematic than the other two. Okay? Because, and I'll reiterate a little bit, mostly to remind myself, it's been a little while since I've recorded. Apologies if you're watching this series straight through and you've already heard this spiel. I'll try to be quick. The first dungeon we went to, Sestasha, was just... it was being infested by pirates and criminals and these fish-looking people. And alright, they're criminals. And it's our job as, you know, good, lawful beings to deal with them and make sure that they don't harm the populace. Okay, fair enough. That's easy enough to figure out. I'm playing a pretty decent guy, generally speaking, so that doesn't make much, it doesn't make much sense to, like, have qualms about the mission there, because we're dealing with pirates, and we have to, you know, put our best foot forward in order to permit this realm to be reborn, etc., etc., other puns. Then we have the second dungeon, Tamtara Deep Crux, which is basically a tomb, as I understand it, and at the very least, it feels like one just because the undead are infesting it, and demons and things are there. And again, there was I think there was a Cthulhu monster, basically, that we fought, Mind Flayer, or whatever you want to call it. Either way, all the monsters in Tamtara were pretty screwed up. And so again, easy to justify as a good aligned character. Very, very simple matter to explain why he would be involved in a mission like that. But we have here the Copperbell Mines. Now, the story is pretty dark, actually. We're basically putting down a slave riot. And I'm not entirely sure Ellion will be on board with that. He's... ironically, considering the fact that he's obviously, like, hyper-violent, because the game, like many MMOs of its ilk, is very heavily based in combat, Ellion's a bit of a pacifist. Most of the time I've logged into this account has been spent doing things other than fighting. I've been doing some crafting, some gathering, all that kind of stuff. And that has nothing to do with violent acts. It involves, well, obviously, it involves craftsmanship, it involves ingenuity, it involves perseverance, etc., etc. The most violent thing that I've had him do, largely speaking, is fishing, which, you know, is for sustenance. Can help, again, help the struggling populace survive a little easier if you have food to give them. So I've been leveling both, you know, fishing and culinarian, or the chef class, you know. So it's, I picture it like Ellion does a lot of things in the headspace that I keep him in. He does a lot of things that involve helping the communities that he's become a part of. So he does a lot of building, he does a lot of craftsmanship, he does a lot of cooking and gathering and fishing and all that kind of stuff, to lend himself to the idea of, the disciples of the land, as they call the gathering classes. That's a big thing for him. The disciples of the hand, which is the crafting. He's building up the realm. He's helping things along. Not a lot to do with violence at all. So that's kind of the big thing. Now, it's hard with a lot of MMOs to try and have a character that's a complete pacifist. In fact, it's something of a trick. It's something you can do to challenge yourself. It is possible, for example, to level a character in World of Warcraft all the way to the max level without fighting a single thing. You can do it by gathering. And you could probably, you could play this entire game. Well, okay, you can have a good time in this game without bothering to fight a damn thing. You really can. I've been doing it a lot, actually. Outside of recording, I've been doing a lot of stuff that has nothing to do with even traveling much. I've been sitting in one spot, crafting, and then selling what I have on the market board. So, like, it's not necessary to go into this game to fight. You don't have to. Now, granted, it's a fun and engaging part of the game, so I wouldn't necessarily discourage it. But there's simply the fact that if I wanted to roleplay a pacifist, I probably could. Now, Ellion isn't a strict pacifist, obviously. We've seen a lot of things explode thanks to his ministrations. So clearly it would be disingenuous of me to say that he's a pacifist, because clearly he's murdered I don't know how many woodland creatures and various humanoids that probably have families throughout the course of every quest that I've done so far. And he won't stop either, because there's plenty more for us to explore in the main scenario before Heavensward comes out. However, be that as it may, as the phrase goes, I do think he avoids violence when he feels that he can. And I feel like this is the first quest that we've gotten in the scenario that really would conflict with his viewpoints on things. Because I mentioned in a couple of through the other dungeon videos, that I do have a very strong image of Ellion as a character. I think, honestly, he's a bit of a teddy bear. Like, he likes to have fun, he likes people to be happy, and, that's just kind of his deal. He's kind of like me in that sense, I suppose. He wants the people around him to be happy, and he wants the annoying people around him to leave him alone. Which I think a lot of us could relate to that, probably. So, it's not exactly unique, I would say, but it's a pretty strong image that I have. So, the idea of putting down a slave rebellion probably wouldn't really work for him, because the idea of keeping slaves in general, I think, it's, again, not a very controversial stance, I would say, for someone in modern society to be against slavery. I don't think that's a hard pill to swallow. But, obviously, Eorzea has dealt with that in the past, if not currently. I don't know if there's indentured servants or slaves in this particular world at the time that we're playing. I'm not sure. I haven't seen evidence of it yet, but who knows? We do have evidence in this dungeon of it being done in the past, though. The giants were enslaved, they were forced to work the mines, and they rebelled. And why is anyone surprised at this? That's the main thing that really kind of throws me off a little bit in terms of the story and how it presents itself to Ellion. Pardon me. Hopefully you didn't hear that, but you might have. That was my chair. It probably needs to be replaced, honestly. But anyway, like, why is it surprising that a group of slaves would rebel? Especially if they're frickin' giants. I mean, let's think about that for a second. Not that hard to figure out, I would say. So, I honestly view Ellion looking at this whole situation and going, well, good for them. Good for the giants. For standing up for themselves. I think he would rather allow the giants to escape the mines and go back to their own society if they have one. And if they don't, he would want to see them build one for themselves. I think that would be his main goal. He'd want to see this race of people who've been subjugated regain autonomy. I think that's probably as noble as his goals get, because generally speaking, he's a very absent-minded professor type who doesn't have very many far-reaching goals. He just kind of does stuff. So, I think, like, I don't know how to phrase this exactly, but I think that this is as much into his deeper recesses as you're going to get, generally speaking, is in situations like this. Okay? And that's where it kind of presents an issue in terms of how the game is structured, because clearly I don't have any recourse. If I don't want to do this quest because it conflicts with my character's viewpoints, then I don't go any further. So I kind of have to integrate this mission into Ellion's larger story. Okay? But how to do that? How can we reconcile the fact that he would not want to put down a rebellion like this, and yet he does it anyway? Now, last episode, I believe I mentioned that the fact that Papashan is the person who actually told us to do this, a character that we've seen a few times in the Ul'Dan storyline, that could be part of it. That could be a big part of it, actually. He trusts Papashan. Papashan is one of his own. He's a fellow Lalafell, and he's also a very high-ranking member of the Ul'Dan, I think it's the military. At the very least, he has the ear of the Sultana, and I think that Ellion would appreciate that kind of authority. I don't think he's one of those buck the system types, generally speaking. I think he would look at it as, if the system needs to be changed, let's change it from the inside. I don't think he's a rebel. I think he is a schemer, although not in the classic sense of being particularly cunning. More that his enemies can't predict him because he makes really arbitrary choices. But anyway, I feel like that's kind of what this would be. So he'd do the mission because Papashan asked him to, so it's a request that he has to make. So he might look at it as sacrificing his pride in order to do a favor for a friend. Now that could be one way to put it. Another one might be that he's going into this mine anyway, just to kind of take stock of things. And the simple fact that he is being attacked, obviously, by the various monsters we have here, well, what is he going to do? What recourse does he have? Is he just going to go into the mine and let things kill him? No. Which kind of actually works in the sense of how the combat mechanics work, because it's actually not a very good idea for the damage dealers to attack first. The tanks should go in first. So Ellion isn't actually attacking first. But then again, you have the fact that if the tank is doing their job, which this tank is very much so, I'm not getting hit. That's kind of the whole point. A damage dealer like Ellion, who has really kind of no defense whatsoever, you know, he's not going to be able to get into the thick of things because he doesn't have the kind of defenses necessary to do that. So he's not getting hit at all. So you would say, well, that kind of flies in the face of what you just said then, doesn't it? Well, yes, that's a good point, random person I just made up in my head. However, it's kind of one of the different scenarios I could come up with on the fly to explain why he would be involved in something that flies in the face of everything he probably believes in. I say probably because it's very difficult to get a bead on what this kid believes. I honestly have no idea sometimes. So this is kind of, I feel like these dungeons primarily have been a glimpse into my process as a game player. This is kind of what I do in general when I build a new character in a game like this. I overanalyze the crap out of them. That's basically just how things go. I've spent years constructing the personal histories and the interpersonal relationships and the various socio-economic norms that influence their lives and their goals and things like that. Like, that's just kind of the stuff that kind of rolls around in my head. Not necessarily consciously. I don't specifically go into, okay, I'm going to build a spreadsheet on the various factors that delve into this character's psychology, etc., etc. I don't actually do that. What I tend to do is actually come up with different scenarios of what they might come into contact with, and then see how they react. And typically a lot of that kind of stuff will come into play eventually. Okay, so this is a really weird boss, to the point where I have difficulty even trying to explain what the hell's going on here. But basically, what I understand of it, and the only reason I'm bringing this up as opposed to the other fights is because it's the only one so far of the 3 dungeons we've done and the various bosses we fought. It's the first one that really kind of messes with your perceptions on how a boss is fought. This is the first one that has a even halfway complicated mechanic, and it's basically that you don't want to. You don't necessarily. The idea isn't just to kill it outright. Obviously, if you look at this, I mean, we're not doing very much damage to it. That's actually not the point. What we're trying to do is use these blasting devices and stuff like that to split it like that into a bunch of different little pieces. Each little piece has a less defense than the previous sized ones. So we need to do this a lot. So basically, as I understand it, I'm not entirely sure if I have this right, which is one reason why I haven't been going into many boss strategies, because I'm just kind of going with it. I'm doing it the way Ellion would. I'm just kind of winging it and blowing things up and hoping it works. As I understand it, we're just kind of guiding the boss, by which I mean the tank is guiding the boss, over to the various spots where he's going to get exploded. Our job as the damage dealers and the secondary characters, I suppose, or my job, obviously the healer's job, is to keep everyone alive, is to make sure that there are no complications, that there are no interferences, etc., etc. So you can see there's a lot more of these little guys here now. So we're actually nearing, I want to say, the end of the fight. I'm not positive. I don't know specifically. Honestly, this is one where I'm just hoping we're going right. See, the Spriggan Quenchers, those are the ones that we got to make sure to get rid of. So anyway, I specifically said when I started doing these dungeon runs that I wouldn't go into boss strategy, specifically because I don't feel I'm articulate enough to really delve deep into how they work. However, this one is something of an exception, just because it's the one that bothered me. By which I mean it was the one that I didn't understand, and the first time I played this, I'm pretty sure I messed it up horrendously. But there you go. So that's the most complex boss we've had so far. Not very complex, honestly. We didn't have any real trouble, but at the same time, it was a little weird. I will definitely take that. I think I'll greet it, though, just in case, because I'm not... Oh, cool. I was going to say, I tend to like using the two-handed weapons, stabs and such, and he is right now, so I didn't necessarily need the shield, because that permits a one-handed weapon to be used, which I'm not using right now. But, since I have it anyway, sweet, I have a new offhand. If I do find myself a one-handed weapon, I'm all set. Well, sort of. I think that was a level 15 shield, and I'm over to level 20, obviously, but it will still work for my purposes. I'm not trying to make sure that Ellion has the best equipment possible. I get along well enough. I've only died a handful of times, and mostly that came from me not understanding the mechanics of the mission I was on. I think you might remember that one. So I think I'm fine. I don't think I have to worry so much about my gear. He's doing okay. So I think, yeah, because we have 3 of our 4 major, what do you want to call it, bullet points, major objectives are done. We have one more boss, Gygus the Great. And we're kind of coming up on him. These first dungeons are not very long, even though it gives us, like, I think, what was it? I don't know, I actually don't remember, because I'm horrible at looking at things, just how long the dungeon had when we started. But the recording's been going on for about 20 minutes, and we have 71 minutes left, so... Okay, there you go. About 90 minutes or so, I think, is what we had. Clearly, I can math. Yeah. Okay, yeah, never mind me completely misunderstanding how math works. I'm an art student. I don't know how math fits into the general scheme of things. I'm horrendously ignorant when it comes to math. So please don't mind me if I go on a tangent about not understanding how basic numbers work. I'm just bad at things like this. So anyway, yeah, these dungeons are not that hard. This is probably going to be done pretty quickly here, and clearly we have plenty of time left. So, you know, the first, I think I've heard the first 4 or 5 dungeons or so are pretty simple. Not really need to worry about too much. They only start getting a little more complex later on. They do, though. There's no question about that. Things do get a little more complicated as the game goes on. Clearly. But so far, I haven't had to really focus too much on the strategy involved. It's been a lot about the story, so. And that's kind of what I'm focused on, and I hope that so far in this series, which is now, by a couple episodes actually, I want to say, the longest single series that I've done on the channel so far. This is the 29th episode. I think Resident Evil 4 at 26. Granted, if you count the Mercenaries episodes that I've been doing off and on for the past year-ish, whatever, then it's still a bit longer, but I do think that this has pretty much become my main series at this point, and it'll definitely go quite a bit longer than either of those. And that's exciting to me because I love this game. I think it's fascinating how Square Enix has managed to work a single-player-esque story into a multiplayer construct. I think it's amazing how they managed to do that without it seeming disjointed and disconnected to what the game actually is, because you can have a single-player story in a multiplayer game, but it might not necessarily feel like the multiplayer aspect is even involved. This one manages to do that. It manages to bridge the gap between single-player autonomy versus multiplayer cooperation, and I just love how they did it. And so, you know, if I'm going to pick any game that I want to focus on for the sake of its story and how it's presented, I think this is probably top of the list right now. I've been playing other games. I have been playing Assassin's Creed Rogue. I've been playing Diablo 3 off and on for the past couple months. I played a little bit of Warcraft a couple weeks ago. You know, I've been playing certain other things, but this is still my main focus, I think. And it's definitely going to be the main focus. Okay, slaves no more. Free! Free! I didn't expect dialogue to be involved in this. Okay. That probably didn't sound like a very good giant. My apologies. Okay, let's see. Let's see. Oh. Fine, then. I guess... Oh. Masters must pay! Masters must die! Something like that. That's a little better. Alright. Gygus the Great, or Gigas, or Giga... I don't know, whatever. Gygus... That's what I'm sticking with. Gygus the Great! Let's see how great you are. Now, there's some different ads in this fight, but generally speaking, as I understand it, the common strategy is to ignore them. See, this boss is more straightforward. Tank goes in, distracts the big thing, we kill the big thing with fire and various sharp things. That's it. That's all there is to it. Yeah, okay, like I said, there's other monsters that show up, but really they don't matter. Because look at that, we got, he's about a fourth to a third of the way done already. Sorry if the footage gets a little weird sometimes. My computer is not the best. It's pretty good, and I hope it is, considering how much it cost. But, you know, it's, this is not I'm not one of those people that actually knows how to build my own computer. I probably should, but I don't. So, okay, here it is. Yeah, they're saying fight the boss only, ignore the ads. Ellion is ignoring them because he didn't see that until just there. Yeah, so my computer is it's a pre-built. I got it from Dell. I think it's a solid option, but I will admit I'm sure I could have gotten a much better system if I'd bothered to do some research. But it serves its purposes. But again, I think I saw some hiccup on the video there. My apologies. It happens from time to time. Alright, so he's most of the way down already. See, here I think would be the most conflicting part for Ellion, because he's the first one to actually speak out against the slave masters, and he's talking about how he's free. And I could see Ellion being very much... I don't know how to phrase that, just conflicted about this fight. It's just kind of sad. He was free for about 2 minutes. Alright, so, victory! Conflicting victory! Alright, so with that, I'm going to end this video here because it's the end of the dungeon run. There's some more storyline stuff that happens after this that will lead into the first primal fight, which should be awesome. But for now, I hope you enjoyed this foray into Copperbell and my various musings regarding character development in MMOs. I had a good time, so I will see you for the next one. Alrighty, bye-bye.